Steven, you know what pisses me off? I mean, everything, but not this week. It's 1/100. I used shutter speed 1/800. Fuck you! I didn't curse. I'll talk about this on the shoe.
Steven, I still get upset. I know we've talked about this. The 1/100, 1/125, 1/1000.
What was the shutter speed that Todd kept getting wrong when we were filming the DSLR guide? 1/1000th?
1/1000th.
He did like 20 takes. He's like 1/1000th.
He couldn't
hit it.
But this is just, I know this is an ongoing thing, and I think it comes down to a couple of things. One, lack of education, and I'm not saying people aren't educated in the world. They don't have photo education. They aren't being taught photography in schools like I was taught, or when you read a book and it told you how to say it properly and how to actually hold a camera and all of that. There's only so many videos I can make about it. I would like to, and the thing is, I did a mentorship yesterday for someone, this kid, he goes to Drexel, right?
Local.
Yeah. Well, he actually came to the boot camp in the summer, and he was a really good kid.
Oh, cool.
And I'm looking at his work because he's doing a lot of sports work at Drexel. He didn't get access to, like, the newspaper never called him back. And I'm like, did you show up there? He's like, I did. And they just basically ignored me. And he's like, but I got in because I'm now doing media stuff with the school. I'm like, that's even better. Do whatever you want. But I'm looking at his work. I'm like, this stuff's good. He's like, yeah, so I didn't have a teacher other than you. All I've ever done is learned from your videos and watched every one of those and came to the boot camp. And I'm like, well, it shows because your shit doesn't suck. And it's not just because it looks like what I would do, because it's different, but it's just technically correct, compositionally correct, and then moment correct for the most part. Just because of the fundamentals, man.
I will say, though, speaking of, saying shutter speed in a fraction, I still get like sensor types mixed up, like how to read like a size of a cell phone sensor, like 1/2.3, or is it 0.3?
That's a totally different animal. There's no education on that.
I'm just saying I still get that wrong all the time. I'm like, well, it looks like a small sensor. I just don't know how to pronounce it correctly in a video.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, though, I took a basic photography class just to kind of get refreshed. At the time, I worked in the photo lab. I knew the developing side of film. I knew the processing side of film, but I still was getting into actual photography at the time, like using professional cameras, I should say. And the teacher, I remember him trying to explain aperture and f-stop increments, and I feel like he didn't even know what f-stop was. I feel like he didn't even know. He's like, just remember the Sunny 16. That's about it.
Which I still
just
don't.
remember that. Shoot everything at f16. I'm like, you're not even explaining what aperture is, though. What I'm getting at is I ended up learning a lot more on my own online versus that class.
I hear you, because can I read the Sunny 16 rule? I never learned it myself because,
Really?
No, because I wasn't shooting full manual cameras, which was a thing, or the reason you would do it. Like if you didn't have a meter and it was sunny,
exactly,
then you would set the camera to this and the exposure would be right.
Close enough.
So what it says, the Sunny 16 rule is a way to meter for correct exposure during daylight without using the camera's meter. The basic rule of thumb states that if you have a clear sunny day and your aperture is at f16, whatever ISO you are using, your shutter speed will be the reciprocal value of that ISO. ISO X equals 1x second shutter speed. I'm already lost. So for example, if your ISO is 200 at f16, then your shutter speed would be 1/200, Steven.
1/200.
1/200th of a second. If your ISO is 100, then it would be 1/100th of a second.
I mean, it's almost the same as the reciprocal rule for focal length. Try and match your focal length with the same shutter speed to compensate for shaking and camera shake.
Yeah. Well, that's the Sunny 16 rule. It's not really something that applies today as much as it applied back in the day. But I wonder, could you just be like Sunny F8 and then just double everything, because you're letting more light in? Or the Sunny F4 or the Sunny 2.8. I bet you could, because you just do the math, right? If it's 1 1/100th of a second at f16. That means at f8, it's 1/200th of a second. At f4, it's 1/400th of a second. At f28, it's 1/800th of a second. So theoretically, if you play your math cards right, you can not need a meter, but
essentially. But yeah, this was really for the film days when you didn't have 1.2 lenses, when you shot mostly at 5.6 and above. So I get it. It's dated for sure this day and age.
It was when you didn't have a meter.
Exactly. At the time, it made sense. Hey, I don't have a meter. Let me shoot f16 and do the Sunny 16 roll.
Kind of like zone focusing. I always heard people talk about zone focusing in sports. I had no idea what zone focusing meant. I was like, what is this system? And then I realized someone explained it like they were shooting an Eagles game and it was snowing. And all of the autofocus cameras at the time, because I think this was like 2008, all the autofocus cameras couldn't focus anywhere on the field because it just kept finding snow. So they're like, we went to the zone system where we focused on the 50-yard line and waited for the player to run there. I was like, oh, that's what that means? You pick an area and you set your app, and then you're like, when they hit that area is when I'm going to shoot. I'm like, oh, okay, I overcomplicated it. It's pre-focusing to a specific spot, like say the decisive moment on the sidewalk. You focus on the lamp post, and when someone reaches the lamp post, you take the picture because you pre-focused because you couldn't track.
Yeah.
That's zone focusing.
Yeah.
So it was just, but these are things that existed. I mean, that's something that I need to do with the 4x5 is you pre-focus on a certain spot and you set your aperture to a certain area that gives you enough depth that when someone hits it, you hopefully get a picture.
And another thing that I think doesn't really matter anymore, unless you're shooting in a full auto mode, is metering. I think metering for the most part, I really don't need to look at the light meter at this point when I'm shooting with an electronic viewfinder. Granted, I still like to have the histogram just to know, is my brightness on the EVF, are the levels correct? The histogram kind of confirms what I'm seeing.
I ignore that.
You don't like a histogram. I personally like to quickly look at it and just know, as like a double check, you know?
Still not right.
It is right.
Not in every situation.
My exposures are almost spot on every time.
Dark situation. The histogram's going to be thrown all the way off to one side.
Of course. I'm not saying it has to be a perfect bell every time. I'm saying depending on the situation, you should be shooting for either darker or brighter. I know that your highlights are either blown or clipped. Are you trying to keep them? You just need to know how to read the histogram properly just to quickly confirm. If you're shooting in an auto mode, that's where the metering modes do matter if you're spot metering or matrix metering evaluative, whatever you want to call it, depending on what system you're in. That's where it matters, and that's where exposure comp comes into play to aid that system.
AIDS,
yes.
You know, I had a guy stop me on the street last night with AIDS.
What?
I was walking back to my car.
But he just said, hey, by the way, I have AIDS. Nice to meet you.
No, like I walked across the street and this gentleman was standing there and he was in my path of walking. So I was like, oh, excuse me. And I didn't say anything wrong.
Tom Hanks in Philadelphia?
No. It was a black gentleman. And Tom Hanks isn't black. The last time I checked.
You sure? I mean, he was just on Black Jeopardy on SNL. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see it. Anyway, this guy's like, I'm sorry, I startled you. I'm like, no, you didn't startle me. I'm just walking around. He's like, I need help to get my copay is $12 for my AIDS medicine. I'm like, I can only buy you food. Like I'm like, you hungry? I'll get you food. What I didn't think about was right outside the CVS. I should have been like, well, let's go into the CVS and go to the counter and do that, which 99 out of 99.99% of the times it's bullshit stories.
Yeah, it's because trying to get money.
Because I have no problem buying someone food, and I say this time and time again. There's a food cart right there. I'll buy you whatever you want at the food cart, and then they go no.
Yep.
Sometimes people take you up on the offer, but most of the time it's like, no, I need the money. I need the money. I need the money. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I only buy people food. That's it. Or shoes. Like I bought that guy shoes and socks that one time. I ordered them, and then when I saw him, I gave him shoes and socks, and that was it.
100%.
But anyway, back to 1/500. The reason I bring that up is, again, just the young photographers are saying things just inaccurate. And the problem is they start to spread on social media, like think they're influencers and teaching photography when you guys have no clue. That's not saying you can't take a picture. It's just saying that you don't have a clue, and you don't always need to be technically correct. But saying things like 1/500, that's not how it's said. So let's say it properly. 1/500th, 1/1000th.
Like ISO.
Yeah, fuck that. It's ISO, it's ASA.
But is it?
Yeah. Well, you're going to listen to Tony and like Tony knows the facts. International Standards Organization.
Is it an acronym?
ISO. International
I just like to
Standards
piss you
Organization. It's fucking bullshit. Hey, speaking of bullshit, remember I was on the phone with you the other day and I was stopped at a light and there was a car in front of me?
Refresh my memory.
It's a guy car.
Oh, yes, I do remember.
I was stopped at the light and there was a Subaru Baja right in front of me. That thing was sporty.
Was it Dan?
No, it had a rainbow sticker on the back. It didn't. But no, it wasn't Dan because it wasn't fucking, what do you get, gray? This was
no
blue.
idea.
The traditional one is yellow. Yellow is yellow. Anyway, before moving into the other thing, there was one thing I sent you right before the show, and it really, another thing that pissed me off.
It's so funny how this like literally makes you angry, where I'm just like, oh, whatever, I don't care. Who cares if people mispronounce it? If they're trying to teach, different story, but I'm like, whatever, as long as they understand exposure and can get it accurately correct in camera.
The next thing is seeing the person, a professional, quote unquote, doing portraits in the studio, but you can so it's a behind the scenes shot and you can clearly see they're holding the camera like 2 inches from their face using the using the LCD screen when you literally should just put the fucking EVF up to your eye. Still, just better.
I just think it's people coming from the smartphone era, used to using a phone and not having an electronic viewfinder, and the screen is everything. At least they're not using the touch functionality, like a touch shutter to take the picture. At least they're using the actual shutter button. I am curious too, are a lot of people still using back button focus coming up, or are they just always using the shutter button? I'm personally not a back button shooter. I don't think you are either. I never could do it. My muscle memory always stuck with shutter on everything. And I think these days it doesn't really matter with mirrorless cameras. I get it with a DSLR era for sure.
Back button focus is
You're almost
stupid.
in continuous at all times with a mirrorless camera if you're shooting subject detection.
Well, yeah, I mean, back button focus was really meant for a time where you would focus on the goalie.
Exactly.
And you didn't want the subjects, because all the cameras would just pick up whatever crossed it back in the day, so that it made sense in sports to do back button focus that way. It makes no sense today.
And focus and recompose.
Yeah. And to do two things today. Why would you split focus and shutter to back button focus with your thumb and now shutter with now you have to do two things mentally? That takes more brain power, and it just, in my opinion, leads to not getting the shot as well.
But I think a lot less people are doing back button focus, and a lot less people are also using the EVF.
I'm talking about people using EVFs right in front of their face. Like, you're in a studio situation. I think the problem, like you said, they've grown up with cell phones and no EVFs, so I get it. But the other problem is the mentality that a lot of photographers have today, and I will say a lot of younger photographers, is that we will fix it in post. We will straighten it later. We will run it through this process. We will do this. We will do that, instead of trying to lock it in as best as possible in the camera and getting it right. And I just think that is just such a bad place to be. But hey, I need to not get angry at stuff.
Old grumpy Jared.
Yeah, I'm going to be up there 70 years old. You fucking kids, get off my lawn.
These days.
Nah, man. I don't want to sound like the old fuck, but from it's things evolve and change. The fundamentals of photography still don't really change, and putting your eye up to the viewfinder is so beneficial for so many reasons, for composition, for stability, for just better quality, because you know that the EVFs are better quality and more accurate to exposure than the LCD screen.
Now, for me, I totally understand using an LCD screen for when you're doing low angle shots
Say that all the time.
above the head. Yeah, but you also will lay on the floor to look through the EVF and take a picture, where I'm just let me put the camera on the floor, flip the screen up, and it's fine.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because I'm using a fucking Canon that doesn't have a screen that operates properly down low. I can't get my line straight. You can't control the camera properly. If I'm using a Sony, if I'm using a Nikon, any of those with the nice 5-axis ones, I will 100% these days put them on the ground because you can actually see the screen.
The true tilting cameras, not the vari-angle ones.
Yeah, no, the
Screen-wise.
Canon's vari-angles are fucking stupid. They only make sense when it comes to vlogging and turning it around. I just don't like. I will 100%. It's harder to lay on the floor now. It hurts my neck. I'm older.
That's why I don't do it.
And it starts to become a problem.
Yeah.
I will 100% put it on the ground if the screen worked right. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Book 2 update. Moving on. You saw this. I got they call it TNC. I didn't even know what the hell TNC meant.
Tony and Chelsea?
Tony and Chelsea came in the mail. That's right. I ordered them from Italy. Hello, buongiorno. Pizzeria. Meatballs. Papa Giorgio. Papa Giorgio. I put $1 in and I won. 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 We get it.
How many Vipers did he have by the end?
And it was like 4 or 5 cars.
Yeah, like the Hummer and
Nick Papa Giorgio. Wow, that's a deep pull. So what a TNC is, the book has been printed, fully printed on the press, 5-color, which is yellow, magenta, cyan, black, and gray. We add an extra. I pay for duotone so that the blacks can mix with a gray, like gray can mix in, and it just makes for better black and whites or thicker blacks. I love my blacks thick, and it just makes things better. So
do they actually call it 5-color and consider black a color?
Yeah, because black's a color. I mean, yeah, it's 5
technically
inch.
it's no color, but
Well, that's just what it is.
Yeah,
CMYK and
surprised
black.
they don't say 5 tones or something like that.
But we do duotone black printing. That's where you can add, like I said, you could do 3. I mean, if you're doing a full black and white book, you could do like 4 or 5 different shades of gray. Shades of gray wherever I go. The more I let go, the now than Billy Joel. Shades of Gray off of
14 Shades of Grey. Stained. Best album. What?
50 Shades of Grey. Best dildo scene. That's right.
Let's just keep at it.
Yeah. What other what other shades of gray are there? I went to Billy Joel. That's a deep pull from River of Dreams. Man, do I hate that fucking song, River of Dreams. In the middle of the night.
Oh, is that the 80s Billy Joel?
It's 90s, but
90s.
We actually had, it was one of the early CDs we had at the house.
I was just watching Step Brothers the other day. The band only is strictly 80s Billy Joel, like doo-wop. They only play 80s Billy Joel, and they're all screaming like 90s and 70s songs from Billy Joel in the crowd.
Go listen to Turnstiles, man, or Turnstile, whatever. The early Billy.
Oh, I thought you meant the band Turnstile. I was like, you like them? They're like a hardcore band.
The early Billy Joel, there was an album that he did that they fucked up in recording. They recorded it at the wrong speed. And so when they slowed it down or corrected for it, he sounded different. You can Google that one. That's a deep pull. Like, they literally recorded the tape wrong, which made it so that it sounded wrong.
I actually really liked Billy Joel's latest comeback song. What was that called?
I'm Still Here or something?
Yeah. I think it was called. Yeah, let me just double check.
I thought you were looking at a door. Steven's looking all the way over he must have changed his desk setup to put I thought he was looking at his door like his dog was trying to bother him, but no, he's looking all the way to the side.
So I now have an L-shaped standing desk, and this desk is enormous. It is massive. I have now my old studio monitors from nearly 20 years ago, these Behringer monitors that are great, but they end up taking a lot of the main desk part where my main monitor is. They end up taking a lot of space up. So now I have to have my second monitor, the BenQ that we used to use, literally off almost 90 degrees, which is pretty annoying, but I really only use it to keep Spotify, and then I have the other half of the screen. Slack is on that for our messaging that we're nonstop using. But I only have to look about 45 degrees to look at Slack, but a full 90, that's how big this damn desk is to look at my Spotify. It is a pain in the ass, but it's really nice to have. You got to see. I got to show you a picture of this setup now because I've got so much damn room on this desk. It's great.
So bringing it back to the book, the book is printed. So what they sent me in the mail is a folded copy of the book. It's not bound. So they take all of the pages, they put it together as if it, they fold certain things. They do it so it turns like a book, but there's no binding or anything, just to make sure that I'm happy with the colors and the tones. And when I opened it up, the answer was like, I'm like, they hit it. It's spot on. Is it 100% on every single photo that it's like perfect color? And the answer to that is no. But when you have hundreds of photos across the book and 99% of them look the way that I want them to look, that's a win. So
that's
the
great.
Colors, the tones, the densities, the things just look really good. And so the next step is binding.
For you, as long as the blacks are black and your contrast is fairly high and thick with 3 Cs, I think that's a win for you. Colors could be a little off, but as long as your contrast is there, you're really big on that.
But colors damn close. And
sure,
these colors are right where they need to be. Do you know why? I literally printed out on my inkjet here 8x10s of the entire book of photos and sent that to them so that I didn't have to pay for their digital proofs, which would have been a waste of like $5,000 because they're digital. They're not actual off the printer. So I sent them my entire book so they could match as best as they could to the inkjet. But what I did pay for were actual press proofs where they print like whatever the largest size is that they can do. We basically did a test print where we shrunk down certain images where the colors and we did some black and whites, we did some interesting colors, and then that runs across different sections and they print that off the actual press. And that's why it's like $500.
A giant collage of images on a giant test print.
That's to get as many that we can across it to verify. Now they had to do it a couple times because what they didn't do the first time, which delayed us, is they did one print. Instead of being like, this is one at regular, this is one at +1, this is one at -1 or +2, and then send that all at fucking once. Instead, we had to waste another 2 fucking weeks because they had to redo it to be like, so we ended up, they did lighter and then they did darker. So I had to do the darker one. I'm like, that's the one I want.
Oh, how mad were you when that happened?
I was just like, why did you just send one? Why wouldn't you just do +1, +2, and it's already on the machine? Just fucking send it. This shit just pisses me off.
It sucks when it's coming from Italy and it takes 2 weeks. Another 2 weeks.
No, it doesn't. It didn't take the 2 weeks for shipping because the UPS is fast. It's a 2 days, 3 days. Oh. But it's the fact that we have to correspond with them after getting it, and then they have to go back onto the machine, and then they're just like 5 days later getting back to you. It's like, I know that you're sitting there sipping your cappuccino and you're not working because you guys take like fucking 2.5 hours for lunch and masturbation break or whatever the hell it is you guys do in Italy. It's like, I need to go to sleep. I just ate all this pasta. Meatball, pasta fagioli.
Can we incorporate those breaks at Frono's Photo? Asking for a friend. Asking for Dan.
You work from home. I don't know what you do. I don't have a camera there.
I take about 39 breaks a day.
My favorite, just on a side note, is when I worked retail. I mean, you know this because you were probably one of them at the time, when you worked. Smoke breaks. And people being like, I can take 15 minutes every hour to do a smoke break. And I'm like, do I get to go? And then I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to take an air break. And they're like, no, you can't. I'm like, oh, it's okay for someone to take an hour or more out of a day on top of their lunch to take a fucking smoke break because they're addicted?
I agree that it should be across the board. I used to work with a woman, older lady at CVS back in the day. And
Did she sound like this?
Dude, yes. And she took smoke
Hi,
breaks.
Steven.
I think you were allowed one an hour. So you're talking a total of nearly 2 hours by the end of the day of her being outside.
Why am I paying you to smoke?
I could barely even run to the bathroom.
What was her name? Nancy? Barb K?
Sharon.
No, that's my mom's name.
That is her name. That was her name.
No. Not allowed.
Not your mother. This was a different lady named Sharon.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not your mother. I'm not your mother.
And she sounded like an old Jewish lady, just like that.
That's right, Steven. Hey, what aisle do I find prophylactics?
You sound like the lady from like Rocco's Modern Life.
What's that?
You don't know what Rocco's Modern Life is?
No.
Classic 90s Nickelodeon cartoon?
Steven, so I was older in the 90s than you.
Yeah, but this
so-
is like early 90s.
Yeah, but I would have been 11 in the 90s. You know, in 1990, I would have been 9. But I don't know. I didn't watch that shit. I watched Muppet Babies.
I'm just
Steven.
surprised you didn't even hear of it.
Never heard of that show. Look it up. I bet you it didn't start till 95.
It started in 1993.
Yeah, exactly. I was already 12, so it was already past me.
Yeah. Again, I'm just surprised you didn't hear about it. There's a lot of shows that I grew up hearing about, but I was, 10, 11, 12, too old to really watch them cartoon-wise.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the book. Binding process is what starts now. That should be done in March. Then it has to get here on a boat. Needs to get here before build. But that's a different story for another day.
What's build? Jared, tell us.
I wasn't trying to go into that, but Build Expo from B&H is back. This isn't a plug. They're not paying me for this. Well, technically, but they haven't announced their speakers yet. I mean, it's possible I might speak there again because last year I made everybody cry. This year, no crying.
Well, there is a very short promo video I saw they released, and you are in one of the clips. Not speaking, but just there talking to somebody in the background.
Does my ass look good?
It does.
Because my ass looked massive on stage.
It's actually a profile shot of you, too.
Nice.
Your arms and your buttocks looks pretty healthy.
So I'm just bringing this up. It basically is like what Photo Plus used to be. It's at the Jacob Javits Center in, is my dad calling? My dad's calling, Steven. Right? Perfect time. Every Thursday. Hi, Dad.
Oh, every Thursday. Is this recording day?
Yeah, Thursday. Recording day.
Hello to your audience.
What's going on?
Not much. What's going on with you? How was your bowling last night?
We're recording, and it was all right. I was off by a little bit. I rolled pretty well. Missed some easy spares I shouldn't have missed.
Let's have a whole conversation while we're doing the podcast.
What can I help you with? Because we're on the podcast.
Go to it. What's the discussion points today?
I think it was dildos.
Now that's exciting.
Yes, for some people. So
Yes,
that
will set you off.
we're just updating people. All right, let us go.
Enjoy. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Anyway, the book. We're on Build. Build is in New York City on June 17th and 18th, and it's free. Sign up. Hopefully, their way to get in is done much better than last year because it took forever for people to get through the processing because they had to print everybody's thing. They need to just pre-print everything or just make it digital and you just go in. It was their first one last year. It was a good event for a first event. I can only expect that it's going to be even better this year with more speakers and more things. And I will be there. Not sure on what days just yet. I don't know if Steven is going to come up. Who knows?
Man, I haven't been to a photo convention. When's the last time? 2016, maybe? 2017, if that? It's been probably 8 years, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move into some of the... Oh, I still have to talk about that. The SS United States got towed down the river yesterday.
Yes.
Last week or 2 weeks ago, I got access finally to the dock. I think we talked about it, where I got to get access to the boat on the dock. I didn't get to go on it, but I was able to get some really cool close-up shots and make it work, and that was good. So yesterday, they delayed the moving of the boat a billion times. The quick recap is that this is a cruise liner, ocean liner that was the fastest one. It was built with Navy specifications. It was a steamship, thus why it's the SS United States. I didn't even know that, but steamship United States.
I didn't know that either.
And it holds the fastest speed to this day to cross to transatlantic. Whatever. No one knows the actual speed because it's still classified from the Navy.
And as a visual, it looks very similar to like the Titanic, minus
It's
one
a
smokestack.
1,000-foot vessel with 65-foot smokestacks, which is equivalent to a 6-story building, and they're still the tallest smokestacks, I believe, ever on a ship. So this thing has been docked in Philly for 30 fucking years.
1996, yeah.
Yeah, that was right when Steven was watching Salute Your Shorts.
It makes me want to fart.
I don't remember that at all. You probably watched Even Steven.
Not really. Even Stevens was a little too, that was like late 90s for me.
Oh.
I was more like Rugrats, Doug Funny, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, the ship got sold because they couldn't raise enough money. They were getting kicked out of their dock. Then the judges had to be like, no, you can stay in the dock, pay this amount of money, and then you have to figure it out. And so someone paid a county paid like $10 million to buy the boat and spend all this money to get it to go down to Alabama, where they're going to strip it of whatever's left. They used to have asbestos, but they sent it to the Ukraine back in the day to strip the asbestos out before sending it back here. And then it's going to be sunk in the Gulf of Mexico.
Formerly known as Mexico.
It's going to, because I was like, wait a second, is this the Gulf of Mexico? Well, yeah, it's going to be sunk in the Gulf of Mexico. If you're out of this country, it says Gulf of Mexico. If you're in this country, it says Gulf of America. Whole another story.
And it will be an artificial reef.
It will be an artificial reef, the largest one there. I mean, it's going to be really cool for scuba people to navigate 1,000-foot vessel with, doors open. They can go in and out. It's going to be cool to see what happens in there with the habitats. But anyway, they were getting ready to tow it away, and I wasn't going to go to get pictures of it leaving, which means I did a half-assed job of preparing. So I was sent a bunch of different locations. I saw one location, and my brain went to the idea that I wanted to try and get a profile shot of the full 1,000 feet of it in the middle of the river. And so I found a spot. I was in a perfect. I needed like 6 more feet behind me to back up. I couldn't get the whole fucking boat in there. And then I didn't realize down the river a little more, probably like 9-minute drive down the river, there was a place called Freedom Pier, and that was on the other side of the bridge, and the boat was coming towards them. That would have been a better opportunity to get the boat sailing towards me. Now, depending on the speed, I'm not even sure, and the angle that I was at, whether I would have had enough at 50 millimeters to even make it work and to get it to focus and be able to, because it was moving, get the composition right. Be able to twist a knob, because my fingers were frozen, which I need to start getting hand warmers. I really do need to just order hand warmers and have them in my car.
It was
at all time.
Really frigid day. What was it, 22 degrees? If it feels like 15.
And no sun.
No sun. Yep.
And I could barely turn the fucking knob. And when I would hit the shutter would go. But then when I reset it, it was almost like it was frozen, and I had to help the wheel turn. So I don't want to damage the goddamn camera. So I was not happy with the results. I mean, I just developed them last night. I would have liked to have I didn't mentally prepare for having it sail, because originally they said it was going to sit in the river for like a couple hours. It ended up only being like 10 minutes it sat in that spot before they started towing it down the river.
Yeah, I just kept questioning, because you were across the river almost directly and then behind the boat.
I was parallel to the boat. I was parallel.
You were still a little behind it, I'm saying. Like, it had to back out. You kept saying it's going to back out like a car and then go forward.
Well, that's what they did.
I'm going to take the pictures while it's profiled pretty much directly in front of me.
Yeah.
But still, you only have one shot, profile, and that's it. You have nothing coming towards you.
No, I have nothing coming towards me.
Yeah, I just kept questioning that. And I think you initially thought it was going to sit for hours, like I think they told you, right?
Yes.
And it ended up being a few minutes, and then
they were going to pull it out at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
But they didn't pull it out till 12 o'clock.
They really waited until low tide hit, and then they only had pretty much minutes to run it under the bridge.
Yeah, and they did, and it moved down the bridge, and it was fine. So it's gone. I have my pictures upstairs. I'm going to have to break out the scanner and scan them. If I did go to that other position, I probably would have gotten off maybe 2 or 3 photos at most. One at a distance, one as it got closer, and then one as it passed. But again, trying to focus that, it would have been at about f8. What I find interesting is, it was an overcast day, so I had my meter reading. I'm just still fascinated that I'm able to get my exposures the way I get my exposures with the 4x5, that they're damn close. And of course, when you scan them, you have a lot of longitude and latitude, or a lot of latitude with it, because it's digital at that point, and you can drag contrast and midtones and exposure. But knock on wood, there hasn't been times where it's just it's so underexposed or overexposed that I
Can't
don't
bring it
have
back.
details where I
Yeah.
need to. Damn close. Like everything has been damn close. And it's a lot of guesstimation.
Well, you use the meter app on the phone, don't you?
Yeah. So when I updated my phone and I went on a shoot, the app that I was using froze after 5 seconds every time because it never got updated.
Sure.
That app stopped being updated, the one I bought. So I quickly downloaded another one and I'm like, I don't know, like, is it accurate? This one is better. So I now use this other one. I don't even know if I know what it's called.
Light meter.
No, that was what the other one was called.
Real original.
Let me see if they have like information in here. Privacy terms, premium access. What's premium access?
Oh.
Pro mode enabled. Oh, I already paid for it. I think I paid like 30. I think I have to pay like $30 a year. I think this is a subscription based
Makes sense.
app.
Everything
I
is.
just copied to the App Store. I'm trying to look up what it's called and I'm failing miserably. Like literally the app doesn't tell you what it's called inside of the app. Manage subscriptions, privacy policy. Steven, I don't even know what it's called.
I mean, what does it look like on the home screen?
Steven, it's called Light Meter. It's
Crazy.
$30 a year. Kind of speaking of subscriptions, flipping coins debating my Gear Vault subscription, by the way.
Oh.
Updating the app and
I was
just
gonna say, is
calling
that even updated for the latest OS?
No, everything would have to be like updated and stripped out. But the only way the app will survive, so it's either turn it off altogether and everybody loses everything, or turn it into a subscription app that hopefully pays for itself and then maybe a little bit extra, right? So but it can't be $10 a month. No one's going to pay $120 a year for that when you can do that with Spotify.
Honestly,
but
it should be like an annual $10 fee.
Well, it's good. It has to be more than $10. You just can't operate a business. It just can't operate. You have to do it. It's going to be like $50 a year.
$50.
And you get access, dude. $50 a year is $5 a fucking month, Steven.
But what do they get access to minus just categorizing their gear?
There's going to be other stuff in there, but it's either that or the thing gets shut off. And everybody loses their data because I'm not going to keep paying for it, and at some point it's just going to crash because it hasn't been updated since multiple iOSs.
What are your costs?
Right now, the cost is like $230 to Amazon a month for data, for
Okay.
storage of people's data.
Gotcha.
But updating apps, you're looking at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 as you need to do overhauls to things. There needs to be ongoing maintenance. There needs to be someone that runs the back end and makes sure that they're looking at error logs and making fixes and all of that. So in order to do that, you need to generate money. I stopped paying for anything to be done. That's why the thing crashes when it crashes. That's why there's login issues. But right now, for the last year, for like last 2-3 years, it's like, no, it's not going to generate money through the insurance. And I don't feel like spending $20,000, $30,000 to turn it into something else. And that's just the truth of the matter. And if it turns into a pay app and it doesn't work, I shut it down. I'm not going to burn more cash doing it. I burned enough cash doing it.
I don't blame you at all.
It was a good opportunity, a good idea, right? There's still so many. See, I get people that come to me that are like, I want to buy my Gear Vault. I'm like, that's great. They're like, all I have is money. Like, I got money and I can do the development. I'm like, but do you have people? If I got the right price, I'd totally just sell it.
Of course.
But the problem is it would die on the vine because what people don't have is what we have. Access to the app still gets a couple of thousand downloads every couple months just based off of the content that we did years ago.
I was going to say that's probably in hundreds of or even thousands of videos at this point promoting that app.
Right, that the thing still generates more than the problem is that most people I have an app idea, that's great. They have to throw money at it to get subscribers. We never have to throw money at it to get subscribers. We had over 100,000 downloads since it started. And I'll tell you, user time is like 13 plus minutes because obviously it takes time to put shit in. My idea would be,
do they come back?
Well, they will. If you spend the time to put all the stuff in it, when you need it, you're going to come back. When you get something new, you're going to come back. When you sell something, you're going to come back. Ideally, a marketplace app would be awesome to help people buy and sell gear, but it would be great for like Allen's Camera if they would be like the official store inside of there, or a B&H who could allow their customers to automatically scan a QR code when they make a purchase and it automatically goes into their vaults. But, all that stuff takes money. The ideas are there, but everything always takes money. And it has to generate revenue.
What about the insurance option? Is that just dead in the water at this point?
Well, it's been dead.
See, that I think was the big play.
Well, it was
From the
the big
original
play.
idea was to input, organize all of your gear, and then to simply quickly sign up for full coverage insurance on your gear and be covered and good to go. That, to me, was my Gear Vault.
What happened there is we had one of the largest insurance companies that I was able to make contact with because I spoke at an InsurTech event and people were just amazed that this was a thing and a possibility. And this one guy came up from this super large insurance company. He's like, I love this idea. Can we let's work together to make this work? We put it all together. We had everything ready to go for launch. And like a week before launch, they're like, oh, we can only write insurance for professionals.
Yep.
So 99% of the people that watch my videos most photographers are not professional photographers. They're people who so happen to have a lot of gear.
Enthusiasts.
Why
Yeah.
can't you fucking cover them?
Yep.
I'm like, we are going to have 10,000 people right off the rip that are going to spend money for insurance. And I would think that non-professionals are less likely to have issues and need to use insurance because they don't shoot as much.
For sure. Yeah. It's a lot harder to cover your gear when you're not getting paid for using your gear.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back off of this, let's get on to the camera that was announced last night.
That we barely knew anything about until yesterday.
We'll explain all of that to you in a second. The Canon PowerShot V1, a new line of cameras from Canon. Steven, do you want to hit us with anything, specs and stuff, or should we explain?
Let's explain
what happened
the
first.
situation first. Yes.
Go ahead. You want to do it, or you want me to do it?
I can do it. So we found out that we were going to get briefed from Canon USA. Late last week, we were told there was going to be a briefing come Monday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. So we get on this call, and essentially they're like, hey, we have a camera coming, but it's only being announced in Asian countries, specifically Japan, Korea, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. And it will be... How's that sound, Jared? And it will be announced at CP Plus. But we don't want to blindside you guys, so we're going to brief you, but we only have limited things to tell you, and we have no pictures, no press release, no pricing, and also, by the way, it's being announced tomorrow, so you have hours to cover it.
They showed us pictures, but let me explain.
But we couldn't show them. They couldn't supply us
it's bullshit.
with the photos. So we knew what it looked like, but we couldn't put them in our video or do anything with them. And they're like, we weren't approved to give out pictures, but here they are, but you can't show your audience.
So this is the thing. There's Canon USA. There's Canon Canada, Canon India, Canon Japan, Canon China, Canon Indonesia, Canon... fucking Sweden, probably. Canon France. We've been to Canon. I've been to Canon France. I actually went to their offices the last time I was there. It was pretty cool. But it makes no sense to not do global announcements in 2025.
Especially for a compact camera when compact cameras, at least in the US, are slowly becoming a trend again. Actually, quickly becoming a trend again. And this could have been the kickoff, the beginning of the new era of compact cameras if they announced it here. But they didn't, and they basically said, we think it's coming to the U.S., but we're not sure when.
Well, it's 100% coming to the U.S. I just don't understand. But it's just frustrating. Actually, I didn't even get frustrated on the call because I already knew. They were honest, and they told us what they told us. We can't, we didn't want you to get caught off guard that a camera was being announced. This is typical. This isn't the first time this stuff has happened. And it's just like, we live in a global world today. Everything... Who cares? So you announce it at 11 at night. Why can't it just be a global announcement? It's not that hard, but it's just frustrating because sometimes you guys will see an announcement happen and it's a new lens or something and we don't have a hands-on yet, but then you go to Europe and Canon Europe brought brought creators in to play with the lenses And we're like, well, why do they get to do it? Well, they have different rules. It's like,
For some reason, they all get different permissions, and USA, I feel like, is typically restricted from a lot of those permissions. So we almost never get. I remember the R5 came out, and someone like Gordon Lang, who's based in Europe and does a lot of Canon Europe briefings, he had hands-on like the day of, where we just got supplied with like a photo and that's it, and we're told we couldn't touch the camera for like months.
yeah. Whatever. It's all a stupid game that I don't really want to chase that much. But we chose to do a preview video, old school style, which I don't think anybody else put out a preview video last night.
Because there was nothing to really say or show.
Well, the old school style means that we were briefed on something. We don't have a hands-on yet, but I thought it's basically, think of it as an extended photo news fix story.
Well, it was essentially a development announcement. Like, here's some specs. We really have nothing else. There's no photos to show. We can describe the camera, say what it looks like, but that's about it. Here you go. It's something to release during the announcement. I get too, like certain announcements made just in those Asian countries, like something like the V10, which was another, their vlogging camera that I think is ridiculous looking. It's a weird form factor. I think that makes sense as a standalone announcement in Asian countries, not really coming to the US because it's not a form factor that Americans are used to. But this is a point and shoot camera that is very similar to something like a G7X Mark III or a G1X or a G5X Mark II. It's even better, in my opinion. And I think Americans would have embraced it and been like, oh, that's a pretty solid camera spec-wise. So anyway, let's get into these specs real quick. So obviously, it's a video-centric camera. V1 stands for video, vlogging, whatever. It's very similar name to the ZV-1, but it's V1 from Canon. They're clearly going after the ZV-1 Mark II, which, by the way, we showed a lot of the ZV-1 in the video that we did. I completely forgot that the Mark II came out like last year and updated the lens to make it an 1850 from Sony. And we kept saying it was better than the 24-70 on the ZV-1. Totally forgot that there was a Mark II. Keep in mind, we filmed this video, an hour after we did the briefing?
Sometimes you make a slight error.
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
made a slight error.
We had to film this video right after the briefing because it came out the next day, and we just had to just put it out ASAP.
I used to just sit and do these videos myself. I would sit in my brother's room, record something, throw it into iMovie, put my intro on, outro on, and I'd post it right away.
I mean, it's what we did. You know, it was talking head, and I tried to cover up some of the stuff and show like the sensor size with graphics to relate it to a Micro Four Thirds sensor. Speaking of the sensor, it has a brand new, they say, Canon made 22.3 megapixel, 1.4 inch CMOS sensor. It's not stacked. It's not BSI that I'm aware of, but it's nearly the same size as a 4/3 sensor, except it's a 3:2 aspect ratio. The G1X Mark II, for example, that had a 1.5 inch sensor, so it's very similar to that. It's pretty much in between a 1 inch and APS-C, which is really nice because
Bigger, better.
bigger, better. It's nice now to be like, okay, it makes sense to buy a compact camera because the sensor is that much bigger and better than my phone, especially in low light. But Digic X processor with dual pixel AF2, they say it's inherited from the R6 Mark II. It has IAF, pupil detection, people, animals detection. I don't think it has like the trains and airplanes and all that crap.
Who fucking cares?
But, yeah, exactly. It has a built-in 16 to 50 millimeter lens, which is really nice because we've always said that the issue with a lot of these compact cameras is they're 20 millimeters, 24 millimeters, whatever. They're not wide enough for something like vlogging, and clearly this is going after a vlogging audience. And it's a 16 to 50, 2.8 to 4.5. It does have image stabilization, but it's only lens-based, no IBIS in the body, expected.
Well, I mean, at least it has stabilization in the lens and it's not just digital.
I do wish, though, it was kind of like the old school RX100s where it was like a 1.8 to 2.8 aperture, or even their G7X Mark III. I think they have like a 24 to 100, 1.8 to 2.8 lens. But again, smaller sensor, not as wide. So I guess they had to compromise and make a 16 to 50.
Yeah.
Has your favorite type of screen, vari-angle touchscreen. Has headphone jack, mic jack, which I'm really surprised it does. Canon usually cripples it some way for these cheaper cameras. They kind of gave it everything, which is nice. But no EVF. So they didn't give it everything exactly.
That's all right. I just use the LCD screen anyway to take pictures.
Exactly.
But for the most part, for vlogging, you just need the flip out screen. The EVF is kind of useless in most situations anyway. except for stills.
A lot of the issues with the power shots from back in the day were that the 4K record times, just record times in general, were pretty limited to like 10 minutes.
But that's
maybe
like 10
15.
years ago.
Not the G7X Mark III. I think you get 10 minutes in 4K.
I've never used that. I didn't
And
even
that's
know it
only like a
existed.
5-year-old camera, you know. But yeah, it's older. But I know the RX 100s were always limited to like 5 minutes in record time in 4K. But now you're getting full width 4K 30p oversampled from 5.7K. Or if you want to do 4K 60, you have a 1.4x crop for a 1-to-1 output, which is nice. And they say you get 2 hours of record time because this camera has a built-in cooling fan on the side. And it also takes a UHS 2 card. So depending on your card size, you can record for quite some time.
Did they give us a price? Did any price come
No.
out last night?
So there's pricing based in China and Japan, but they're different pricing. I think it translates to like $800 US, and then the other one was like $899. I'm going to guess it's around that $800 price point to match the ZV-1 Mark II, which I think is going for $899 right now. I believe.
Still expensive. I mean, $800, $900 is still expensive for
It is
something.
I'd rather personally have like an M6 Mark II interchangeable camera for like $1,000. That's
Well,
a little better, bigger sensor type
yeah,
deal.
but again, probably limitations with ISO and autofocus are much different than. I mean, just something small and compact like this is pretty interesting.
And the other thing is that it has a pretty beefy grip. A lot of these power shots have almost no grip at all, or have something like the X100 Mark VI type grip where it's just like a little tiny grip on the side. The issue is this grip might be too big to fit in your pocket. I don't know. It looks like a pretty beefy
Not
power
yours.
shot.
You wear Jenko jeans, Steven.
Unless you're rocking Jenkos, yeah. And it does have a digital hot shoe for wireless audio. It does do C-Log 3, which means it does 10-bit 422, which I'm also very surprised about for a power shot.
Not a lot of stuff fits in my back pocket because, you know,
I mean, that donk barely fits in that
that
back
takes
pocket.
up most of the room of my pants.
Now, it has a 3-stop built-in ND filter. A lot of their more flagship type higher end power shots have the built-in 3-stop ND filter, like the G7X, G1X, all those cameras, which is really nice. I know the ZV line, I believe, has that too. At least the RX 100 line had that.
Well, do you think there's going to be a continue like a V something else with an interchangeable, you know, thing like the?
I think this is their flagship. It's a 1 series. And Canon has always said if it's a 1 series, that's the flagship. Now, for this line, I think there could be an interchangeable V line, but they're going to call it something else. Like Sony, for example, has ZV E10, ZV1, and then ZV E1. The E was always their interchangeable versions.
It could be like the RX or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's also kind of a stellar stills camera. I thought this was just going to be strictly video, but it does shoot RAW, 14-bit
Meh.
RAW with the mechanical
No
shutter
EVF.
at 15 frames per second. And you can shoot electronic shutter at 30 frames. I thought it was going to be limited to like one shot at 30 frames per second. I think the G7X is like that. But this says full autofocus, full servo at 30 frames per second electronic shutter. Now, keep in mind, not a stack sensor.
It's also a smaller sensor.
The 1-inch sensors were always stacked, so you could actually shoot those higher electronic shutter frame rates with no crazy warping or anything.
But smaller sensors mean faster readouts, and because they're smaller.
Yes, but Canon also traditionally always had slower readout sensors compared to the competition.
You're not really buying this camera for a stills point shoot, though.
Agreed.
You could totally use it to go to the bar, but it doesn't have a built-in flash. But you could use a digital hot shoe to put in a built-in flash, and then you're just wasting more money and should have bought a real camera.
I mean, I've said it before. I've brought the RX 100 Mark VI, I think we had, or maybe even 5. I brought that to Disney a couple of times, and I really enjoyed using it. And that's just a 1-inch sensor, 20 frames per second camera, stack sensor.
That had the pop-up EVF, right?
It had the pop-up EVF. That's the difference. I could use the EVF.
They were expensive.
I end up using the screen, your favorite, most of the time.
Oh, loser.
Because I just wanted to quickly take it out of my pocket, take a picture, done. It was more just have family memories. I'm not trying to, be the best photographer ever on this trip.
What's that camera? What was that called?
RX 100. I think they're on this Mark 7 now.
I'll just look up RX 100.
But the Mark 5 is when they were still doing the 24-70 1.8 to 2.8 lens, which was awesome.
It's a $1,300 camera.
Yeah, it was a higher end power.
So it wasn't. This was not meant for vlogging because it has a 24 to 200 millimeter equivalent zoom. This is meant for stills.
Yeah, but that was the Mark 6 and 7 introduced that lens.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I think it was the 5 I took because that was when it was the 24-70 and it had that 1.8 to 2.8 aperture, which was really nice. And the built-in ND. And I think the 24-200, they stripped the ND filter too.
That pop-up EVF, RX 100 Fro. Like I'm looking on YouTube, that video we did years and years ago in New York City.
Was that the 6?
No, man.
We did another one though in New York City as well.
Well, this is interesting. I haven't looked, but 5 years ago we did official Sony RX 107 hands-on preview.
That's
as 192,000 views.
The 7 is the last one they did, and that's the one we
4. We did a real-world review of the 4 RX 104 9 years ago. Has 1.1 million views. Oh shit, Steven. Then we did Sony RX 106 real-world review. We did that one in New York. That has 557, 37 minutes on that Sony RX 104. That's crazy. That was a good video, though. I need something to carry around to vlog sometimes that's better than the the V1. No, the V10
I hate
that
that
Steven
thing.
hated because it had
Piece of
digital
shit.
stabilization. It was just easy to look at. Very small screen.
Dude, I'd rather you use your phone than that, for sure.
Yeah. What I really need to do, I wish they had the way to input the Rode microphone into the side of it. Or if Canon had a wireless hot shoe mic. I think, does DJI make one of those where you can have a digital hot shoe adapter now?
I don't know, but with this camera, you could. It has a multi-function shoe.
I
what
know,
Canon
but that's
calls it.
just using that Canon's shotgun mic, which might get in the way of the lens shadow-wise because it's going to stick out in front of the camera. What I'm saying, it would be great if they just had a clip-on. I think Sony makes one of these too, but it's like a clip-on, just like my Rode mic that just clips on, that goes into the digital hot shoe, and I can just talk to it. That's what I really want for that, not just the shotgun mic. Anyway, anything else to add before we wrap this up like a cheap condom?
I just think I think this is like I said, the beginning of the compact camera revolution. You know, it's coming back. I think point and shoots are going to be a big thing, and I'm hoping for these high end type point and shoots. I don't want the rinky dinky $400 or $500 ones. I want something I can bring on a trip with me that will give me better quality than a phone. And
you don't want it. But I'm trying to think of what is a xenial name. I'm going to have to Google this. What are popular xenial names? Ava, Noah, Elijah, Ethan, Alexis, Sophia. Sounds like Steven trying to pick his kid's name by swiping in an app.
hey, it worked. I also, with the camera, I know, we hate using the screen. I wonder if that one attachment, if you recall, I think it came out with the M6 Mark II.
M6 Mark II, I think.
It was the
awesome
EVF attachment that you would put in the digital hot shoe, and it would basically give you an EVF. I wonder if that would work with this camera, because it's a Canon-made product, and typically it's compatible with Canon cameras.
That'd be interesting, because that thing was pretty cool. I like the option to do that, but that was pretty expensive to add that on. Do we have that up? We might have that upstairs, maybe. I don't know.
We never got the EVF attachment.
Oh, we never got those?
No, and we definitely don't have the M6 Mark II. That was announced, with the 90D, right?
Yeah, when we were in Atlanta for drifting.
Yeah.
Drifting shoot. And then, was that the one where they took us to the former slave, plantation. That's the word. Plantation.
Was that? Yeah, I think you're right.
No, that was the EOS, that may have been the R.
Oh, that was the R50, R8 in New Orleans?
No, that was Atlanta also.
Oh.
No, that was
Charleston.
Charleston.
Yes.
Oh shit.
Here it's the EVF DC2. That's the EVF little attachment.
Yeah.
How much? I don't think they even sell it anymore.
No, it's like $400.
Was it that much?
Probably.
Yeah, it's compatible with the G1X Mark II, the G3X, the M6, the M3. I bet you that would work on this camera, or they're making like a version 2.
We got to ask, where they won't answer it, but we got to ask.
But then again, it just makes it not a compact camera at that point.
No.
Unless you take it off every time, put it in your pocket.
Yeah, but you have a little bag, you have a purse, you have a Birkin. You know, what can you say?
True.
I carry my Birkin around all the time.
Little fanny pack.
Yeah, my Press Pass 20, I use that shit all the time. My Think Tank belt pack is like my go-to for, I'm going to order another one so I have more. That's how I do my 4x5 film as we prep for baseball season. Actually just got some more film in the mail. Hopefully. I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm prepping.
Oh, I just found the EVF. It's $330. I think it's discontinued, but that's what it sold for. Wow. That is expensive. That's a third of the price of the camera.
A new one would be like $400.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to pay for an EVF.
It is, but you know what? If there's an option and you can choose to do it or you could choose not to, at least you have the option.
Yeah, true.
Still like the pop-up of the Sony, even though it felt dainty.
So
it was
tiny.
so smart.
So tiny.
But it was so awesome.
It
You
was.
had it.
Yeah.
That little camera, that point and shoot is like the ultimate point and shoot, the ones that they had. Because they had that fast-ass glass.
I'm telling you, I still use the RX 100 Mark V. Like, I borrow it all the time.
You don't sign it out. I've never heard you ask permission, Steven. What if I want to use that
Do you
camera?
know how much stuff goes missing from the shelf? And I'm like, oh, where'd this go? Oh, I bet Jared gave it to somebody. Oh, I bet Jared lent it to somebody and we never got it back.
No, the most things that I lend, I get back. When it comes to giving, I give. I don't actually. So, I mean, I've said this a million times. Do not sell anything that is ever given to us.
No.
Never would I sell something. I rather give it away. Like I get bags.
We've got so many bags. And it's a shame because they are pretty solid bags.
I use, depending on like, if I go to Kenya, I need this bag. If I'm rolling on a small plane, I need this bag. If I'm taking my 4x5, I need this bag.
Well, yeah, we typically keep the backpacks pretty organized because we both use them fairly often. But in terms of like a sling bag or something like that, we've got a lot of random bags laying around.
Give those away. All right, let's wrap this shit up. This is RAWtalk 139.
Yes.
And we're better, obviously. And I think I sound great today. It's just
You sound a little rough at first. I think you sound warmed up now.
That's because I just woke up.
I was going to say you were
something.
You were up late last night. We were both up late trying to get this video out into the world and
I
think
stayed
about
up.
titles.
I came in last night my chemicals were ready, and I just felt like after bowling, came in, prepped the video, went into the dark room. I finished around 11:06 was when I finished processing the 12 sheets, hung them up, came down here, didn't leave here till 11:40 to go back home. But I just felt that it was easier to get the print, getting the developing done at night so that it could hang overnight. And then in the morning, it's ready to scan without having to wait for drying till the end of the day.
Makes sense. I was banking on Canon Rumors or Canon Watch, whatever, all the rumor websites. I was hoping someone was going to leak actual images of the camera so I could put them in the video. So at least we had like something to show the audience. But for once, they didn't leak it early. They didn't leak actual images.
Nope.
And
they didn't.
We couldn't. That's why we had to blur out the thumbnail because we didn't have any pictures.
Nope. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. I don't even know what our phone number is. I haven't mentioned that phone number in a while. Steven, do you have the phone number in front of you? 313. Wait. I think I have the piece of paper. Yeah. We still answer it, the text line. I do go in there and answer. We just
313-710-9729. Give us a text about the show. Also leave some reviews. You can now comment on Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, you can leave preferably 5-star rated review.
You could do that on YouTube also, but most people don't. I mean, we still get a couple thousand on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm curious who really listens via YouTube each week, or is it mainly just, in the car via Spotify or Apple Podcasts?
Yeah.
Or any other app. I know I personally listen to everything through Spotify.
I listen through everything through Spotify.
Even if it's video, yeah.
Even in my Tesla Model 9.
Model 9.
Yeah. The HH. All right.
Oh, jeez.
I'm out. Thank you very much for listening. Jared Polin, frontnewsphoto.com. See ya.
Bye.